The point that I'm driving at is in this life, there is competing. There's competition. Some of it's friendly and some of it not so much, but there is competitions. Maybe you are friends with a person who is constantly competing with you, trying to outdo you, and upset with you because you've outdone them, or whatever the case is. But that'll be over once we die. There'll be no more things. So Solomon has been taking us back and recognizing that one day when life is over, the things that we felt like were so important that we fretted over or we concerned ourselves with, it'll be all over once we have died. One other thing, that actually there's two more things, but the one thing that we'll drive home this morning is that of loneliness, that of departing from human connection between relationships. Relationships are not over because of death, but the loneliness that being separated from relationships that we deal with, and I'll help you to understand what Solomon helps us to understand here in just a moment. But I want to speak just on basically a maxim, that positive impact through personal contact. Positive impact. We've said before that if there is no personal contact, you're never going to make a positive impact on people. You've got to reach out and touch someone, as the old AT&T commercial used to say. You've got to make a contact with a person if you're going to impact their lives. And we want to impact their lives for the gospel's sake. We want to impact their lives for goodness' sake. And so if we're going to impact the lives of our children, there's got to be personal contact. If we want to impact the lives of our spouses, we're going to have to make personal contact. We want to impact the lives of those that are in our community. They're going to have to reach out and connect with people. But we find that there's a great distance or a great departing from that idea today in the life that in the world that we live. So I help to understand this following prayer. Our Father, we ask that you'd help us this morning as we do our best to unpack what Solomon has been reminding us about, the things that will be resolved and understood and been made clear because of death. And so since we're all faced with it, we all know one day it's going to happen, that the newspaper will have our obituary in it, that our Facebook accounts will one day be closed because we're no longer posting on them anymore, because we have departed from this life. And if believers, we're now present with the Lord. And so some things that we'll not have to deal with, although we deal with them now, we understand that because of death, we don't have to deal with them. We won't deal with them anymore. But while we're in this life, help us to resolve ourselves to be better and more studious and observant about these matters. Please help us as we unfold the Scriptures. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, you've seen on the back of certain larger automobiles, it'll say, "How's my driving?" a bumper sticker, and then it'll give a number maybe to the company. If it's Dot Food Service, if you are following behind one of their trucks, it'll say, "How's my driving?" If it's Cintas, they're more or less commercialized wagons, cleaning bathrooms and floors and so forth, or delivering linens or whatever, it'll say, "How's my driving?" For those companies that are concerned that their drivers obey the speed limits and the road signs and are not a hazard to others on the road, they're concerned about that. So as a company being concerned, they put that placard on the backside of a vehicle, and now whether or not their driving is lawful or legal or very good, that remains to be seen. But at least they're interested, they're curious. I wonder if we would have a bumper sticker on our backside that said, "How's my living?" I wonder if anybody would be calling whatever number it is and saying there's something wrong. So if we had "How's my living?" and everybody knew and call Bible Baptist Church 580-223-6629, if you're going to call the church, I wonder how many phone calls we would receive in a month, and I wonder how many of those phone calls would be positive and how many of them would be negative. Generally speaking, when you see something that says, "How's my driving?" the only reason that somebody's going to call that number is usually not to brag about how good the driver was. How's my driving? You asked, and I just want to say they were remarkable. I mean, they were going right to the speed limit. Now, I was trying to get around them, but they were doing great at following the road signs, and there was no problem at all. I could see, good job, 2 thumbs up, 5-star, great review. probably they're not going to call for that. They're only going to call when there's a problem, there's an attitude, there's some sign language that doesn't mean what they think it means, that they're showing to us from the window, and it doesn't mean that we're number one. So so there's some things there's some issues. So I wonder, I mean, how many of us, if they knew that we go to Bible Baptist Church and we said, how's my living? I wonder how much from myself on down to you. Probably every one of us to some degree, if they were to follow us around enough, they would find something to complain about, something to gripe about. And so that means that we're all in need of improvement, aren't we? In this matter of human relationships, every one of us are in need of improvement. Every one of us can do better. An ancient African proverb teaches this: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Some of us are in the fast lane, and we don't want anybody impeding that lane because we're on a mission and we got to get it done as fast as we can. I don't know why, but it just popped into my head. I'm in a hurry to get things done. I rush and rush until life's no fun. Now, I don't know who's saying it. I don't know where it came up, but when things pop into my head while I'm preaching, I go ahead and say them. And that popped in my head. But I mean, there is truth to the statement. I'm not a huge country fan, but I think it is country song. And there's some people that are in a hurry. They're in the fast lane. They want to go fast and they want to go there all by themselves. And when they get there, they find out, well, what a lonely place to be. Because I've actually taken nobody with me because they would have gotten my way. But they realize only too late. And now to backtrack and go back to the point where they can bring people with them, it's too late for them. That's a very lonely place to be. And I think that's what Solomon is on about. Then also going far, going together. You may not get there very fast, but at least when you do get there, you'll get there further than somebody else, but you'll have all your family and all your friends with you because of the acquaintance you made. I think this saying, this, and I only found this African proverb. I didn't know that there were such things, but I only found it this last week, and I thought, man, that's a great statement. What a great statement. You want to go fast, you go by yourself. If you want to go far, you go with people with you. You go together. That saying encapsulates the teaching of Solomon here in this passage as he continues to reveal to us what life had taught him. And who better to learn from than Solomon? I mean, he reigns for 40 years. He lived possibly for 60 years. But in that lifetime, he had a lot of experiences that at the end, he basically tells us, don't do what I did in much of his life. He made a lot of mistakes. At the end of his life, he recants the mistakes he makes. He surrenders his life back over to the Lord, but now he doesn't have much life left before he closes his eyes in death. Well, there are certain things that we all must experience in life that might only be fully rectified through death, and I've mentioned them: injustice, oppression, rivalry, and now loneliness is discussed in this passage. Human connection may well be the most vital aspect of all our human existence. And the key to making human connection is communication. Communication breakdown is the source behind marital troubles. It is the source behind parent-child relationships and the breakdown there. Communication. So if there is no communication, they say that the top 3 reasons for a divorce today, the top 3 reasons, they say, well, these are the root causes behind most divorces today as they give them. One, they'll say, is incompatibility. We just don't get along. We just don't like each other. Well, how in the world did you ever end up in the first place together? I don't understand that. Scratch my head, and it doesn't make any sense to me. But incompatibility, fornication, adultery, that kind of stuff. And by the way, I say fornication because adultery might be, with a member of the opposite sex, but there's other perversions, member of the same sex, steeped in pornography, pedophiles, and so forth like that, whom God will judge. Well, that's one reason, but also financial. Financial may be the number 1 reason. And I'm not sure exactly where we're at now in history, but it used to be 10 years ago, finances were the number 1 reason for divorce. But those are the top. So they would give for, I want a divorce. Why? Because unfaithfulness, financial, and incompatibility. And at the root cause of the financial dilemma in a marriage, the root cause of incompatibility in a marriage, and the root cause for the unfaithfulness at the bottom is communication. There's somewhere in their relationship there was a communication breakdown. The same thing could apply to a mom and a dad raising their daughter or their son. Well, why doesn't the child relate to the mom and dad anymore? Because there's a communication breakdown. The mom and dad are no longer listening to the concerns of the child, and the child is no longer interested in the concerns of the parent. And so there's no more communication because, mom and dad, they eat their dinner separate, and the children, they go to their room and eat their dinner separate, and no more is there a table. And if there was, it would be a weird thing for everybody to eat their meal together. What do you mean we're eating our meals together? Well, I already ate. Well, yeah, me too. Well, I want to eat, but I just don't want to eat right now. And so we're on different schedules, and we're out of sync and out of touch. A communication breakdown for a church family, that can happen and lead to the loss of human connectivity. Well, if only you knew then how important you are to the lives of those that you meet. I wish I knew. I wish I knew how important I am to those that I meet. It would help me to maybe keep the connection a little bit longer. If only I knew how important I am to those that I'm going to encounter on a day-to-day basis. It could be that the encounters that you make in process of 1 week, the experiences that you make in relation to another person, the smile you give another person may allow them to go 1 more hour, to keep on going 1 more day. The way that you treat your customers at your workplace, the way that you treat your coworkers or your boss or whatever may allow them to just keep on going 1 more month. You see, you do have an impact on other people when you encounter them. But also you'd have to recognize the flip side of the coin is they have an impact on you, be it negative or positive, that in turn or in kind, the way that you treat people is generally the way that you get treated back. In our increasingly antisocial world, where computer screens have replaced face-to-face interactions, where phone calls are screened or even avoided, where emails, emojis, and screen names are the way that we identify those that we call our quote-unquote friends, which basically, if you're identified by just an emoji, if you're identified by a screen name, big tough guy, 101. I don't know. I mean, whatever your I'm the buck. I don't know. The buck stops here. So basically, you understand this. When you put that on media, it's an emoji, it's an email. I'm just whatever email it is. Hot stuff at Hotmail. Okay. If that's how you're identified, basically what that does is it dehumanizes us. We don't have a name anymore. We're disassociated from our name because our name is who we identify as us. And if this is not true, take a mom and dad who are thinking about naming their new baby. They refuse to name it this because they knew a Bob before. They knew a John before, and they don't want their child to grow up like that guy. As if somehow having the name makes that person become that person. And it doesn't, but we very rarely do we ever, make a name badge for a new team member that says Adolf. It doesn't happen as often because, there's not Stalin. I'm going to name my child. No, we don't do that because of the implication. We wouldn't want to give honor to that name. But at any rate, I digress. Coming back then, dehumanizing one another makes it easier for us to unfriend one another. When we dehumanize each other by just, it's easy for me to say, I unfriend that smiley face with glasses. But if you knew behind that smiley face with glasses was Gavin Reese Currington, and he put his name on there, well, I can't unfriend Gavin, but I can unfriend him as an emoji. See, there's a breakdown, whether you are prepared to admit it or not. We are all the time dehumanizing our identity. We're taking the identity away from one another. Now, I want to continue to call brother, sister. These are my loved one. This is my family. And we want to do that reverently, and we want to do it certainly consistently. But it does make it easier when we dehumanize one another to ignore each other, to unfriend one another. And we got to remember then what might be the most important thing that we might give anybody in this world. You know what it is? Our attention. That's the most important thing you can give anybody, is just give them attention. That's what many, most, if not all, crave. They crave attention. One of the characteristics of a society in our day, in 21st century lifestyles, is that there's a mass withdrawal from connecting with others when we are living at a time in history where we have the greatest possibility to interact with people around the world. It's interesting that there can somebody have a pen pal with a person in Indonesia, but they won't talk to people in their own family. I mean, I think probably before you want to have a pen pal around the world, you need to make sure that you've squared up with face-to-face interactions at your job and at your home and at your church. It's interesting that the people that come to God's house are surrounded by people will maybe say 3 or 4 words before they're gone. You'll be here for an hour and a half in assembly like ours on a Sunday morning, but not say 2, 3, 4, maybe 7 words total in the time you're here. Make very little interaction with people. You'd rather find, if we had a mezzanine section, you'd like to sit up in the balcony in the way back and never interact with anybody, to where almost you could say, I wasn't even there, even though I was forced to be there. Many young people are that way. Many young people will come into the house of God and don't recognize me, don't talk to me, certainly don't call me down from the pulpit, never, I don't want to be embarrassed, I don't want to shake anybody's hand, I don't want to smile at anybody, I don't want to smile in the entire time. You're smiling somewhere. Some people come in and they're unhappy when they come into the house of God. I wonder why they're even here. I mean, why would you even come to a place that you're not going to be satisfied? Well, mom and dad, good for mom and dad to make you to come into the house of God. At least you give you some kind of upbringing to where you'll never charge them with not raising and training you up in the house of God. Well, Solomon is presenting in this chapter, or at least in this passage, what I believe to be a problem that we deal with today that he dealt with back then. But he also offers us wise counsel, or if you prefer, a solution to the problem that he addresses. I think the problem we'll start with in just 2 points then. The problem is human abandonment. And I believe that's recognized in verses 7 through 8. Let's go back to verse 7 and 8 and reread them so that we can have the sense. Verse 7 then I returned, and I saw vanity under the sun. Now here's the vanity. This is the worthlessness. This is the pointless behavior that he saw. There is one alone. This is worthless. There is one alone. This person, being alone, is independent, but as much as he's independent, he's also isolated. Independence and isolation are the key factors in this one that's alone, because the very next phrase says this, and there is not a second. Follow it up. There's not a second person in his life. There's no one else in his life but he or she on their own, all alone, and that's how they want it. They want to continue this way. They saw Jeremiah Johnson, and they're just hoping that they can go out in the wilderness and live just like he did amongst the bears and the wild animals, and maybe the natives come in periodically, but they go away as fast as they came in. But even he knew that living alone and isolated like that was a very lonely place to live, lonely way to be. The problem is that we have, many of us, surrounded by people, have abandoned human connectivity, have abandoned human connections. There is one alone, and there's not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labor. He keeps on working and working and working, but he has nothing to share it with, nobody to share it with. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches. He keeps on giving and getting and getting and getting, but he never gives to no one else. He neither saith he, for whom do I labor and breathe my soul of good? In other words, I keep on working my fingers to the bone, but who am I working for? I'm only working for myself. I have nobody to leave it to. He says this is also vanity, but he follows it up saying, yea, it is a sore travail. You think the hard work is travail. No, it's a travail when at the end of the road, you find out I have nobody on this journey of life with me. What a vanity this is. So there is one alone. He's independent and isolated, but also there is no end of all his labor, meaning he is diligent, but he's absolutely distracted. He's isolated himself, being independent. I don't want anybody and I don't need anybody. Unfortunately, there are maybe people in this room right now who are recognizing right now how quickly they have abandoned human connection. They don't want anybody, and they don't need anybody. You're just as independent as this man that Solomon speaks of, and you're trying to isolate yourself from others, just like, well, if I isolate myself from people, then they don't have to tell me what I can do and what I should do, and that way I can do whatever I want to do. You can't escape the Holy Spirit. You can't escape God. And God is all-seeing. And by the way, you can't escape the truth that's in your heart, what you know you should be doing and that you're not doing. So you think that you can live independent and isolated and do whatever you want and live however you want, but you can't. Because once you have been introduced to truth, the truth will make you free or the truth will enslave you. If you say, I'm come to truth and I'm obeying truth, truth has made you free. If I come to truth, I know it's true, but I don't want to do truth, you keep on going away. It's as a taskmaster, always whipping you and always reminding you about what truth really is. Well, the problem is human abandonment. He's independent, isolated. He's diligent, but he's distracted. He's a hard worker, but he's distracted by the work. The work is not a means to a family end. The work is the end itself. The aim is success. Never does he even give a thought, says Solomon. Who do I have in life to share with all that I've achieved? Who do I have in life to share with all that I've gained? I have nobody to share it with. What is the vanity then described by Solomon here? Here it is. What is the meaningless aim or the pursuit to which Solomon says causes this sore travail that only can be resolved in death? It is this: accumulating material goods at the expense of cultivating human relationship. Your hands, you will put effort into something in life. The effort that we ought to put into life is human connection, human relationship. The man, it was not good that the man be alone. And yet there is one alone, says Solomon. God designed all creation. He designed this with a mama lion and a daddy lion, with a mama elephant and a bull elephant. He's designed these all together to be in a family. Family is designed by God. And he said, of all creation, I see one man. Here's humankind, but he has nobody to share his life with. So he says, I will make for him an helpmeet. And he didn't make a bro. He didn't make a brother. He didn't make a father. He was the father. So he made for him a wife, a helpmeet. Why? So that those two together could procreate, so that they could achieve replenishing and being fruitful and multiplying the earth and become a family. Family is important to God. A man staying with his wife, a wife staying with her husband, blended families, even if they are blended, they were divorced from other people, but now they found one another. That is important to God. Bound together, a common bond, contributing to the vows and so forth. Well, at the expense of human relationships, there is one alone. There is not a second who keeps on seeking after material goods. The end of that is vanity and worthlessness. And you may have a great name, but you don't have anybody to share it with. What does abandonment mean? It means to withdraw from or to cease from maintaining. There are some married couples in this room that have ceased from maintaining their relationship. You see, they dated in order to have a relationship. Once they got married, took care of that. Now there's no maintaining the relationship. And I must confess, it is difficult. It is hard work to maintain the relationship, but it is absolutely worthwhile. Sometimes it's better just to go ahead and have a knockdown, drag-out argument so you can make up. It's part of practicing this maintenance that you have to have. Between a father and a son, a daughter and a mother, there has to be a maintaining of that. And some people are abandoned. Well, I give up on dad and I give up on mom. You don't know what kind of parents that I've got and everything. You are involved in human abandonment, and that is a problem that may not even be corrected until you die. Well, how do we know if we're coming dangerously close to this state of abandoning society or abandoning, or maybe social abandonment, human abandonment? How do we know we're coming close? Let me give them to you quickly. Number one, I think when you value personal success above human relationship. When you value personal success, your achievements, your accomplishments, what you want to do in life above the relationships that you should have. The relationship with God, the relationship with your spouse, the relationship with your children, the relationship with your church. Yes, should there be a relationship with your job? Yes, but it's way down at the bottom. Number one should be God. Number two ought to be your spouse. Number three ought to be your family, your church, and then maybe at the bottom you have, and maybe friends, but maybe at the bottom you even have this relationship with your work. A married man will not value his wife, and maybe conversely the same thing is true. A mother constantly adrift from the home and children and her children, chasing down a career. A man can do the same thing, removing himself from the life of his wife and so forth, chasing down a career. A career is wonderful. A career is important. God did give Adam work. Let me give you a little word back from Paul. If you, man, will not provide for your own family, then you have indeed denied the faith, and you are worse than an infidel. And that's Scripture. We say, well, what I do, I provide them money, don't I? That's not what the Bible says. You need to provide shelter, food, clothing, love, comfort, peace. There's so much more that you need to provide. And my aim is not against at married couples this morning, but I think the shoe does fit. And it is at least one way to illustrate that you and I may have gone so far as abandoning human relationships, and that is a problem. Well, not only that, when you value personal success above your quest for human relationship, how about number two? When you arrive at the top but have nobody at home to share in the achievement. You finally made it. I'm on top of the world. But Ma's gone. Maybe the old black and white. I'm on top of the world, Ma. But his mother was dead. Mom can't even join in the celebration. You get on top, you reach the last rung of the ladder to success, and you're all by yourself, and no one can celebrate with you. Listen to this. By obsessing over emails, agendas, meetings, goals, reports, employees, products, deliveries, processes, and bonuses, a person cannot afford a wife, a person cannot afford a family, a person cannot afford children, or even a friend. Why? Because they all get in his way. What a very lonely, vain life is that. And by the way, dear believer friend, if you are a child of God and you live a life like that, no wonder God may cut you down in mid-stride. Because He did not design you or me to go through life without connecting with other people. If you want to have a positive impact, you're going to have to make some personal contacts in your life and hold them together. Well, when you value personal success more than human relationship, when you arrive at the top but nobody's around to share in the achievement. Another way you're dangerously close to human abandonment is when you perceive every day the same and every person an asset. But it's not the Lord's Day, it's just another day. I don't mind working on Sundays, it's just another day. It's not another day. Have you ever come across somebody that it's Christmas time and they don't celebrate Christmas because, I don't celebrate Christmas, that's for kids. People that, hey, go ahead and schedule me on Thanksgiving, I don't care. It's just another day to me. Have you ever come across people like that? Yeah. The love of money is the root of all evil. All types of evils are found in this. Now, money itself is not wrong, but the love of it is. Because it drives you from human relationships, causing you to forget, why in the world do I have a job in the first place? I have a job so I can afford that car, to where I can afford that mortgage, where I can afford that family. That's why I work. I work because I want to be productive, and I want to put forth effort, and I want to take up challenge. I like being challenged at work. I mean, not in the moment. But I know that those challenges, as challenging as they are making me to develop, making me to grow. Well, you perceive every day the same, and every person simply an asset or a resource. What I mean by that is this. People are not to be considered as valuable to us based on how they help us to gain an advantage over the competition. In other words, I'm not building my ministry on your backs. My ministry is you. right? So it's not that I'm trying to make a name for myself at your expense. And there's people that'll lead a business that way. They'll run a business that way, that you do this, you do this, you do this, to where you all help me. No, that's not. We're in this together. It should be a team. Well, there's ambitious aims that we're reaching out, and I think we understand that when we perceive somebody as an asset, and that's it, more of a, I had to go to a spy glossary. They actually have that, spy glossary. I mean, you can go to an index of all these terms, CIA, FBI, all those terms that are found in here. And I thought, what a term to totally dehumanize a person. That I'm not considering that man or that woman as a person having value. They're just an asset. They're a resource. They're a target. They have no identity to me. There's no value to me beyond what they can do for me. We do that all throughout the world. Maybe that helps us to cope with the loss of them. If I lost an asset, I just go get another asset. Okay, so your lawnmower. I mean, generally speaking, men, though they miss their lawnmower and weed eater, will go out and buy another weed eater and lawnmower. They usually don't weep over them. It's an asset. It's a resource. It helps us to do our job. I lost that hammer. Oh, man, I really like that hammer. Well, I'll go ahead and get another one. I wonder, do we treat our spouse the same way? Oh, man, I don't know where she went. Well, I'll go ahead and get another one. Our children. I mean, consider recently my daughter got into an accident. I'm thinking, I lost that daughter. I'll just get another one. Or I have 3 left. One less mouth to feed. I'll save some money. I don't have a car payment now. I don't have that insurance. Do you think that any father thinks that way? No, absolutely not. Because there's a connection that's been made. But there are some people in this world that consider people just that way, just as an asset. Every day is just a day. There's something special about the Lord's Day. There's something special about holidays. There's something special about people. But when you begin to abandon people, you're going to find yourself falling into this. I give you number 4. When you can't think of a single act of kindness you have done for another that had no strings attached. You can't think of a single thing you have done for others that was kind and generous and didn't have any desire that something be done for you because you did it for them. You had somebody over to your house only so that they may have you over to their house. You gave them a tank of gas so that they may give you a raise in pay. No, we don't do for others so that it may be done to us. Your kindness might be done so that you may benefit most of all in the end. You could buy a meal for every person in the restaurant, but you couldn't pay enough money to have one of those people come down and sit next to you and enjoy the meal. You've abandoned humans. You've abandoned society. Listen, folks, in the end, at your funeral and mine, it'll not be those that have made a profit on that attend the funeral. It'll not be those that I've made wealthy by my life that'll attend my funeral. It'll be those that are truly my friend and those that were happy to be my relative. They will be the ones that attend my funeral. And they will be the only ones who cry. My enemies may not show up. They may not concern themselves. Those that I've made money off of, those that made money off me, no, they're not going to show up. But I ask you then, what impact are you making in your life to others? Will anyone cry at your death? I ask you this. Let's put it a little bit more personal. Will anybody visit you when you get put into a nursing home? What a very lonely place to be. And you're doing it to yourself right now. I think Charles Dickens had it right in The Christmas Carol, when he talks about in the very first 2 chapters, I believe it was, in that book, where he talks about how Ebenezer is visited. By the way, this is Ebenezer Scrooge, verse 7 and 8. There is one alone and there's not a second. But here comes Mr. Marley. He's chained about. And every one of those chains he fastened by himself in the way he treated other people. That's right. And his message to Scrooge was, these chains that I bear have not been designed by another for me. I designed them for myself. And all throughout eternity, I must bear these shackles because I did it to myself. Makes you wonder how many people that are found in a nursing home and no one will come to live with them. I wonder, no one come to visit them. I wonder if they lived a life abandoning human. And when they needed human connection the most, no one came to see them. And they died a broken, abandoned, miserable wretch. Lonely. We don't have to live that way when we start connecting with others. So therefore, there must be a solution to this. We can't leave the message now because this would be a very depressing way to leave. So we have to consider what Solomon gives as the best advice. And the best advice is found here in the solution, human involvement. Okay, so, this is an obvious sermon, right? It should be. If there's a problem, what is the opposite of the problem? If it's human abandonment, then let us involve ourselves in connecting with others. Because I don't want to abandon others, because that's that leads to loneliness and despair and misery. So let me be involved with others. This is the solution. And what does he say? 2 are better than 1. Duh. There is 1 alone, but there's 2 that are better than 1. And later on, he doesn't use these terms, but similar in verse 12. Look at verse 12 then. At the end, and if 1 prevail against him, 2 shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. So he says this, well, 2 are better than 1, and 3 are better than 2. Ultimately, that's what he's saying. Now, why is it better to go through life with friends and family than on your own? Well, life is not simply a quest to make your living, to make a name, or earn a name, a reputation, or to complete a job or a task. It's about experiences with human connection. Have you ever had a moment? You made a memory? You experienced a moment with another person? A moment that only you two, it was special for you two. Friends experience moments like that. Spouses experience moments like that. Siblings, parent. Just a moment. It could have been just a look. So I have a friend who I met through our time at Chick-fil-A, and now he's in Lubbock, Texas. His name is Dane, and I really appreciate him, and we have a lot in common by our tastes. He has good taste, and so do I, and so we get along swimmingly. And so things that we do, little one-liners or things that we do are the same. And we happened to be taking care of a conference that was done, and we were the one, Chick-fil-A was the one providing the meal. And so we had to go get more ice and get more water to bring in to keep things cool and the beverages. And so we came to the sink that was provided for us in this conference hall. And we got the ice in it, and we were standing there, and we were kind of doing this thing together. We put it down in the sink, and we were going to put water in it, and the water just trickled out, just like a little. We had it up full blast, and we couldn't get just a little bit. And both of us at the same time both went. It was a moment. We didn't plan it and say like, hey, 1, 2, 3. We didn't do that. It was just, both of us we're pretending as if we're taking a nap because this was so slow. You ever had a conversation with a person like that? You walk away from the conversation and the same person that was in the conversation, you're like, because you're like, I was bored to tears, whatever story that was about. I don't know what the guy was going on about. It was just silly. It was nonsense. And I had my eyes wide open, but I slept through the conversation. I don't know what it was about. Yes. Well, we had a moment. We shared a moment. That was a memory. We made a connection. Have you ever had anything like that? That's a positive thing. Well, you ought to have experiences, humanly speaking, with other human beings. I'm afraid that some people have more experiences with their cat or with their dog or with their goldfish than they have with others. That's human abandonment. Okay, so Solomon says, okay, here's the solution. 2 are better than 1. 3 are better than 2. Get more people involved in your life. Why? And here's the why then. Number 1, when it comes to working, verse 9, 2 are better than 1. When it comes to working, 2 are better than 1. And this is actually what he's saying. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. Okay, so they're working together. Now, why could it be said that 2 are better than 1 in the area of working? Well, performance. I perform a whole lot better. If it's just 1 versus 5 on a basketball court, my performance is going to be very lacking. But if I have 5 versus 5, my performance can be better. There's somebody in your world that makes you a better person. My wife makes me a better person. My children make me a better person. Some people that I labor with in the ministry or I labor with that in the secular field, they make me a better leader. You see, so my performance is better. How about this? My productivity is better. I can get more done with a helper than I can get done by myself. But some people's like, oh, I just don't even need anybody else. Let me just do it all myself. You can't do it all yourself. Your productivity will never be what it could be if you had 2 or 3 people helping you. And how about this? Profitability. You make more profit when you're more productive. When you're performing well, you're more productive. When you're more productive, you can be more profitable. You see, I mean, this is easy figuring. And so Solomon says, it's very wise then for you to have 2 that are better than 1 in the area of work. But secondly, in verse number 10, when it comes to walking, 2 are better than just 1. Verse 10, for if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. What is Solomon speaking to? Stability. And so you have 2 that are walking together. Years ago, I've told you the story, and I think I told it when Mrs. Currington, my mother, was here. But we were walking through Kroger after service one night, and we were just talking, kind of laughing, and all of a sudden I turned around and I looked, and she wasn't there. Like we were walking down the ice cream aisle, I think it was, and it's like, what happened? I looked back to the back, and there she is, face right on the floor, knees right down, her face tucked in, and she like pushes herself up, and she's laughing so hard. I said, what are you doing, you old lady? And I just fell. I said, get up. I said, why are you so old? And I gripped her like this, and I carried her basically throughout the rest of the store, teasing with her and everything. And I've done just as many dumb stunts as that, that she has done for me. But walking, stability, support, strength, security. How about stimulus? A motivation. I mean, if I have somebody walking with me, I'm going to keep on walking until they stop walking. They motivate me. How about structure? You ever find yourself when you're walking with somebody, you kind of get in the same stride? So they're providing a structure, you're providing a structure for both of you. Sympathy. Oh, I'm tired, so am I. Want to keep going? Yeah. Motivation, sympathy. How about sharpness? Iron sharpeneth. So you're walking together. You've got a common agenda, a common goal. You're going to keep each other sharp. So in the area of working, in the area of walking, 2 are better than 1. And this is a weird one. Verse 11. I'll read it first before I give you my wording on it. Again, if 2 lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? Okay, 2 people. Now he's talking about friendships, in the area of friendships and human relationships. 2 are better than 1. And no doubt there is a thread here about a man and a woman coming together and they're providing heat. No doubt. But also it goes beyond that, because how can one be warm alone? Warm meaning comforted. So there are some warm and fuzzies that 2 provide that only 1 on their own cannot provide. So when it comes to working, when it comes to walking, when it comes to warming, 2 are better than 1. Why? For the comfort they provide each other, for the counsel they provide one another, for the consolation they provide, oh, it's going to be okay, for the concern they provide for one another, for the cheer they promote together, and for the change they excite between one another. You see, there's some things that I need to change about myself that my wife helps me to notice those blind spots. And some things my wife needs to change about herself that I help her to notice her blind spots. So in that area, 2 are better than 1, because when you're in this area, when you're lying, when you're that close to one another, I mean, it is warts and all. I mean, you see everything about each other. You're close to one another. And Solomon says it is better that you had somebody so close to you to diagnose for you the things that you refuse to see yourself. You think that you're okay. You don't need any counsel by yourself. You don't need anybody to be concerned for you. You don't need to change anything. Happy, I don't need to be happy. I'm by myself. I'm all the happy that I need. Well, Mr. Scrooge, you do need Bob Cratchit. You do need Tiny Tim. You need some joy in your life. And 2 come together for the purpose of work, walk, warmth. But number 4, When it comes to winning, two are better than one. When it comes to winning, two are better than one. And this is where the threefold cord is not quickly broken. Verse 12, and if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him. So if one person came up to you, you got two buddies that are come back, and I got your back and I got your back. I got your flank and I got your back. You don't need to retreat. Let's take them together. And that's that threefold cord, because three are better than two. You got friends. Well, why? When it comes to winning, two are better than one. Why? Because of dominance. I mean, you can dominate one person. If you're on the attack and you got two buddies, you can stand your own. Defense. Isn't it wonderful when a friend comes and defends you? I think it's pretty remarkable when others have defended Bible Baptist Church. Some have criticized and others come to the defense. I think it's fascinating when somebody will criticize, a place like Chick-fil-A, and then others will come up on Facebook and criticize that person for criticizing Chick-fil-A. I think it's pretty incredible. When you got somebody that'll rush to your aid so that you may dominate and win, so that you may defend and win, so that you may have depth, so that you may have deliverance, so that you may have dependability and also development. All of these areas that two are better than one in the area of working and walking and warming and winning. Do you want to win in life? Do you want to be comforted and consoled in life? Do you want to have support and strength and stability in life? Do you want to have profit, productive, and your performance to be well? Well, you're going to have to get more people involved in your life and knock this thing off about abandoning humans because they're human. You need more involvement, because God has designed this place to be 6 billion, 7 billion people here on planet Earth. And you can't connect with one? What's the matter with us? Well, then how might we be better involved with others? And just a couple of tips. How might I be better involved with others? Well, first of all, I need to protect the relationships I do have. I need to protect the relationship. It's hard enough to develop a relationship. Once you have one, though it be an old one, you need to protect those. So I'd say, first of all, protect the relationships you do have. Number two, I would say cultivate new friendships. Cultivate new relationships. You got people that you work with, you got people you go to church with, you got people in your own family that you don't have a relationship right now, or not a very good one, but you barely know their name. I mean, with the aid of Facebook and things like that, you can cultivate, you probably have more in common with that person than what you know. How about this? Number three, invest time with family first and friends second. Invest time with family first and friends second. There ought to be a list of priorities, and your family ought to be one. Number one. And then number four, give generously to others. What are you trying to do? You're trying to involve yourself with others. Others may not have as much as you do, and you can give generously to other people. Give generously of your time, of your treasures, and so forth. And then finally, be present with family and friends through the triumphs and the trials. Don't be like the man that went off into the far country, and when the money went out, so did his friends. Be there through thick and thin, we say, when things are at their highest and when things are at their lowest. By the way, with a spouse, you vowed that. Till death do us part is what we said. And I come back to the marriage thing because it is so powerful and it's impactful here to illustrate the truth that Solomon's getting at, for better or for worse. You say, well, it's worse right now. In fact, it's worse than it's ever been. Well, you vowed to stay with it. Okay, then I'll stay with it, because it is going to get better. Things go in cycles. It can be good and then it can be bad. You say, you're expressing, the first part of the day and the last part of the day. Okay, but it's a cycle. Tomorrow will be good in the morning and bad in the evening. Okay, or bad in the morning and good in the evening. I don't know. However your life is structured, but you promised sickness and in health. Poverty as in wealth. You said that you would do these things. Well, maybe we ought to have vows like that for our friends. Not just our spouses, not just our family members, not just our children, but also our friends, that we're going to be there. I'm going to be a friend to my friends, and I'm going to cultivate new friendships and new relationships, and I'm going to be there when you are sorrowing and you're grieving, when you're rejoicing and celebrating. I want to be there on both times. I want to be there when you get that new car. And I want to rejoice with you. Not necessarily be envious of you, but rejoice. Man, look what we got. That kind of thing. See, I want to be involved more with others. And I believe that that's exactly what Jesus Christ, when He came to earth, they didn't criticize Him because He abandoned Himself. But that Jesus guy, He's always antisocial. He's untouchable. Nobody said that of Jesus. He was the friend of sinners. By the way, He was the friend of religious persons, even though they couldn't see it. He was willing to be around anybody and everybody. The woman that could touch the very hem of His garment and cause Him to stop in His tracks and say, virtue's gone out from me. I know somebody's touched me. Huh. That's a friend of sinners. That's a friend that sticketh closer than any brother. He's not abandoned you. You're not abandoned those that He loved, that He died for. Be involved in more with others. Our Father, we're now at the conclusion. And I think, in fact, I know that somewhere in this message there was a spot for conviction on everyone that's in this room. That somewhere we have abandoned human connection. We've said yes to one thing and no to the needful thing. I pray that you'd forgive us. I pray that you would call to our attention the things in life that we are not doing very well. That you would bring us back to that point of interaction with others, involving ourselves with others. May we start with you. May we continue with our spouses, with our children, with our extended family, with our friends, those that we work with, those in our church family, even loving our enemies. Father, help us and bless the message to our hearts in Jesus' name.